Welcome back, focused learners. I am literally so thrilled to have you here today. In this explainer, we're unpacking a really fascinating and honestly incredibly relatable dialogue from a piece called The Sovereignty of Skill. If you've ever felt like the deck was completely stacked against you, or if you've ever wondered how genuine merit actually survives in a world so full of privilege, well, you are going to absolutely love this. We're going to break down a conversation between an 18-year-old student named Aryan and his mother, who he calls Mama. We'll be looking at the exact mechanics of privilege, the raw power of true expertise, and how shifting your geographic perspective can, quite frankly, change your entire life trajectory. So let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. We're starting our explainer with a deep and very real systemic frustration. Aryan is 18, right? That's that critical age where the reality of the adult world really starts hitting hard. He looks around at the education system, at the pathways to success, and he realizes something pretty demoralizing. Aryan is staring down the barrel of these grueling, highly competitive exams, and he's seeing a massive discrepancy in the sheer effort required for different people to reach the exact same goal. It leads to a really heavy question. Is the concept of equality fundamentally skewed? For Aryan, the answer is a resounding yes, because the playing field simply isn't level.
Just listen to Aryan's frustration here. He says, "They have no issues, Mama. They have family businesses. They are rich. I need to struggle." You can really hear the tension and the anxiety in his voice. He's specifically calling out the fact that the children of the rich and influential have this incredibly easy path, while Aryan has to prepare intensely just to have a tiny chance at passing these competitive exams. He watches as these privileged students bypass the struggle entirely. They're using their immense wealth to pay steep donations and literally buy their way into the exact colleges of their choice. Aryan feels totally trapped by his lack of resources, just overwhelmed by a system that allows money to circumvent merit.
So we have two very different ways of looking at how the world operates. On one side, we have Aryan's perspective of manipulated systems and skewed equality. He's hyper-focused on the donations, the family businesses, the bought access. But contrasting that is Mama's remarkably grounded and pragmatic response. She doesn't deny his reality at all, but she reframes it entirely around the concept of survival of the fittest. She actually goes so far as to compare human society to the animal kingdom. Her point is that, sure, while the systems themselves might be heavily manipulated by the rich, the foundational rule of survival still applies. The question isn't whether the system is fair. The real question is how you survive and thrive within it.
Section 2. Unmanipulable capability.
This is where Mama's philosophy really takes shape, and it serves as the core antithesis to Aryan's frustration. We're exploring what happens when we stop focusing on the systems that can be rigged and start focusing on the elements of human value that absolutely cannot be bought. Mama takes this concept of survival of the fittest and applies it directly to the modern human condition. How do you become the fittest in humankind? It's a rhetorical question she uses to challenge Aryan, but I want you to think about it too. If the rich have all the money, the family businesses, the bought access to top colleges, how does a regular person like Aryan ever overcome that massive disadvantage? How do you compete against inherited privilege? Well, Mama's answer completely sidesteps the issue of money and focuses squarely on human capital.
Mama tells Aryan straight up, it is not about the start you get. It's about becoming an expert in the field of choice. She totally acknowledges Aryan's complaint. Yes, the privileged kids absolutely get a highly favorable starting point because of their wealth. No denying that. But Mama points out a really crucial vulnerability in their privilege. Ultimately, survival is about performance. If those kids who bought their way into college with steep donations are fundamentally unable to perform the actual work in the real world, they too are going to struggle. A good start doesn't guarantee a strong finish if there's no underlying competence backing it up.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the profound distinction Mama makes between manipulating a system and manipulating actual skill. Aryan points out that the rich rig the systems, right? But Mama drops this incredible piece of wisdom. She says, but always remember, they can never manipulate capability. That is why they need to hire experts to get work done. This is the ultimate equalizer. A wealthy person can buy a diploma, and sure, they can buy a business, but they cannot buy the knowledge inside an expert's head. When complex, critical work actually needs to get done, those manipulators are completely dependent on the capable, and they are literally forced to hire the very experts who had to struggle to build their skills from the ground up.
And that leads us to the foundational principle of this entire explainer, the sovereignty of skill. This is the concept that true capability cannot be manipulated by wealth or influence, forcing rigged systems to ultimately rely on and reward genuine experts. No matter how much money is pumped into the system, an airplane won't fly, a bridge won't stand, and a patient won't be cured by a steep donation. Right? It requires genuine, unmanipulatable capability. Building elite skills is your absolute best defense against a skewed system because it's the one thing that makes you indispensable.
Section 3. Expanding global horizons.
Once Mama establishes that expertise is the ultimate currency, she expands the scope of the whole conversation. She pulls Aryan's focus away from his immediate, frustrating local environment and opens up a much broader worldview. Mama tells Aryan that expertise is valued globally, and this sparks a major realization for him. He asks, "Are you saying that I should look for opportunities across the world?" You see, he's been so fixated on his local competitive exams and the local colleges that take those steep donations from rich families. He hasn't even considered that his capabilities might be valued entirely differently somewhere else. He's been playing a rigged, localized game without realizing there's a massive global board available to him.
Mama's response is incredibly empowering. She says, "Yes, why not? Never restrict yourself. Be where the best opportunity presents itself." This is such a critical pivot for him. She's basically advising Aryan to entirely bypass the local constraints and systemic roadblocks he's been agonizing over. If the local system is skewed and prioritizes donations over his hard work, why waste energy fighting a brick wall? He should take his unmanipulatable capability to a market that actually recognizes and rewards it.
But as you might expect, Aryan immediately has a very relatable moral hesitation. But what about giving back to the country? He naturally feels a sense of duty to his homeland. And Mama provides this brilliant pragmatic strategy for balancing giving back versus personal growth. She tells him to separate where he creates his professional value from how he financially supports his homeland. She advises him to work where his expertise is respected and where the opportunities actually exist. Then, from that position of global success and strength, he can always donate to the causes he believes in back in his home country. You don't have to stunt your own growth in a restrictive system just to be a good citizen.
Section 4. Overcoming systemic restrictions.
And this brilliantly illustrates the power of taking action based on the right philosophy. Armed with this renewed sense of confidence, Aryan completely shifts his strategy. Step 1. He doubles down on his expertise. He knows his specialized projects in aerodynamics are being completely ignored by colleges in his own country. Step 2. Instead of getting discouraged by that local rejection, he figures out the pathways to the best aerospace courses available globally. And Step 3. Within just a few months, he secures admission in a college overseas. And not just that, they actually offer him a full scholarship. The local system ignored him, but the global system rewarded his genuine capability with full funding. Amazing, right?
Aryan comes back to Mama with this incredible news, and she gives him this final, validating piece of wisdom. This is excellent. Never let the system or others restrict you. The emotional and practical resolution here is just huge. Think about it. Aryan started this explainer feeling totally defeated by rich kids who could just buy their way in. He ended it by utilizing his own unmanipulable capability to win a full scholarship on the global stage, proving that true expertise can completely override localized, skewed systems.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer, and to a question I really want to leave you with today. Will you let local systems restrict you, or will you build the unmanipulable capability that forces the world to open its doors? Remember, they can manipulate the system, but they can never, ever manipulate your true skill. Go out there, build your expertise, and find the place where it is truly respected. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep learning.